Today on Gateway Unlocked.
This beautiful experience that it delivers now, that the same tablet you're looking at with a catalog and choosing your product item is, please go ahead and pay for it here right now. So it really makes for a seamless journey, both from a merchant user experience, but also from the consumer, serving people quicker.
Hi, and welcome to Gateway Unlocked, Mastercard Payment Gateways podcast, where we connect with teammates and customers from across the globe and organization on payment trends, innovation, and ideas that are shaping our business. I'm Anne Herrera, and today's topic covers the evolution of payments from traditional point of sale to point of interaction, most specifically using our mobile phone. It's our lifeline as a consumer and more often as a small business owner as well. Cloud-native solutions like Tap on Phone are enabling merchants to compete and grow their business in non-traditional ways. And if it's one thing the past 3 years have taught us, it's to embrace non-traditional. Our guests for today's topic cover various aspects of the Tap on Phone landscape. First, we've invited our customer, David Adams, Senior Vice President at Network International, who's recently piloted a Tap on Phone integration with customers in MIA. From the Mastercard side, we have Deepak Achar, who has facilitated this pilot with David, and from the product team, Craig Brackenbury, who is dedicated to evolving the Tap on Phone solution for our partners and their merchants. Gentlemen, I am super excited to get started today. I love the opportunity of having a customer. So Deepak and Craig promise will give you an opportunity to talk, but David, let's jump on in with you. Learning about our partners and our customers is honestly one of my highlights in doing this. So can you share a bit about yourself, your history in the payments career and in the payments industry for me and then for also our audience?
Well, thank you very much, guys. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be part of the conversation. It's a topic that's quite close to my heart. I've been in the payment industry for a little over 20 years now, predominantly in roles around acceptance, digital acceptance, and product management. Up until 5 years ago, that was predominantly around the Asia Pac, North America, and European markets. But in 2017, I joined Network International, and ever since then, I've been focused predominantly on Middle East and Africa market, which is hugely exciting. One thing I've learned in the past 5 years is that MIA definitely has its unique characteristics. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing some of that with the group as well.
That's amazing. And you started off with such very diverse areas, now focused on MIA. So let's talk a little bit about MIA. We know from our research and being in the industry, they're a very mobile first area in regards to how they interact, how they connect. What were some of the signs that showed you at Network International that you needed this Tap on Phone solution? What was the challenge that you guys were having?
I guess the first thing is MIA is quite interesting, and it's what we see by way of trends is quite different depending on the countries within MIA. So I guess some of the initial telltale signs was, if I take UAE and Dubai more in specific, we look at the economy is very much focused on digital inclusion, and micro and SME business is hugely encouraged. But obviously what comes with that is not every micro business or small business is able to afford some of the legacy solutions that involves hardware-based solutions. So as we looked at it and we said, Rick, how do we serve a broader part of the market into micro and SME? We needed to find solutions that was less dependent on hardware, was more cost effective, and also just gave us the logistical flexibility in order to get those solutions out to these micro and SME businesses. So that was probably one of the key signs, to be honest.
Would you say, and this is for the group, we've had so much different evolution within the payment landscape in the past 3 years, in the past decade, really honestly, if we consider it this century, 1999, we wouldn't know what what a smartphone or connected devices were. Would you say that this move from point of sale to more point of interaction using mobile phones, using untraditional POS, for me, it ranks one of the top innovations, but what about you guys? What are some of the best innovations that you've seen that are moving the landscape forward?
I think that for me, I mean, I've worked on card present now for well, at least 15 years, not as extensive as David, but I think if you look back to where we've come from in terms of traditional point of sale, and when I started 15 years ago, it was always about what's the device that's going into a merchant's estate, how are we going to roll that out, what's the cost in doing that. Then if you look at actually, so that was the traditional way of rolling out point of sale, and then we looked at the evolution around MPOS and how that changed. And if you look at actually what's changed in the last, I would say even 3 years, it just has been phenomenal. The rate of change has just, is 15 years to 3 years is really what we've seen in terms of how about we just do payments on people's phones, and that's changed dramatically over the last few years.
I think I would tend to agree to that, Craig. To add on a little on that. So if you look at it, I think we've always traditionally seen payments as something really at the end of a journey. I just need to pay and move on, sort of a thing. And that's been, even from a merchant perspective, that has just been something to do and get away with. That mindset has changed from a merchant perspective as well. I think more and more people are seeing payments as something that's integrated into their ecosystem. And the move to Android or iOS platforms, software-based capabilities from the merchant communities, and equally the acceptance devices now catching up on that is, I think, perfect, right? So it's exactly where the market is going to be in the future as well.
You make an interesting point, Deepak, there, because of my 20 plus years, the first 10 years was actually the first decade was focused around e-commerce online solutions. And when I got involved in the physical world, I was baffled at the barriers to delivering payments in point of sale, because we were talking about old Linux devices with green screens, and it was terribly difficult to change anything on it. So that shift to your question, and I think it is, as the shift to Android and iOS platforms really kind of answered that question for us. Well, whether I'm looking at a screen online on my PC or I'm looking at a payment acceptance terminal in the physical world, it shouldn't be that different, right? It really shouldn't be that. So that change to better platforms within the mobile environment has really enabled it, to be quite honest.
I think it has accelerated this particular use case. When we looked at tap on phone from a gateway perspective back in 2019, it was something that we thought this could be a future payment type for in-store payments. And it was it was a risk at the time. We were thinking, it might pay off, it might not. We did some development around it and thought it might be something we have to, well, in a sense, bin, if it didn't actually come off. But then when COVID hit, we actually found that customers were coming to us, like David and others, looking for use cases where cash could be displaced, and looking at use cases around cash on delivery. So we were just, I suppose, in the right place, the right time. We were, we'd already done the development for that, but I think COVID, of one thing, has definitely driven the use case for this.
Let's talk a little bit about that customer journey for tap on phone, because you said some very interesting things, Craig. Deepak, you also said some very interesting things about the payment method being integrated. And I think it's amazing, whether we call it tap on phone, tap to pay, it's the same type of customer and merchant journey. Can you talk a little bit about what that interaction is, what that journey is for our audience?
So I think what really comes through with the tap on phone experience is the ability to accept payments on any mobile device, right? So no more bulky POS being shipped around, or the guy having to stuff a POS in his pocket when he comes over to deliver something, right? Equally, if you look at even in-store experience to what David mentioned, doesn't need to be those clunky devices that existed in the past. It can be a nice fashionable tablet there, right? So really changes the consumer experience and how the consumer actually sees the product going out. What it also provides, because now we're moving to a more software-based capability, it allows merchants to sort of personalize that experience, sort of embed payments into their own applications or apps, right? Give consumers that sort of sense of security that they're paying at the right place, in the right manner. Consumers today are habituated to contactless payments, right? At least in market where the XPays are, they rule. Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, they pretty much rule the market in most of the places. Contactless payments are more the norm than an exception these days. So I think it's something that consumers demand and merchants love to offer these days.
Yeah, you make a good point again, Deepak, because when we set out and we started working together, I think initially our focus or thinking was predominantly around the micro and SME sector. But as we learned, suddenly we were confronted with this greater opportunity, which was key enterprise and retail is really interested in this. And to your example, we found retailers who were looking for solutions for stuff like queue busting or serving consumers on the floor. Those were the guys who were really interested in it. If you think about, walking into a bigger retailer a few years ago, you may find somebody on the floor with a tablet showing you their catalog and you choose it. But when it comes to payment, they'd walk you over to the counter or they pull out the big device. And what Deepak was saying is this beautiful experience that it delivers now, that, the same tablet you're looking at with a catalog and choosing your product item is, please go ahead and pay for it here right now. So it really makes for a seamless journey, both from a merchant user experience, but also from the consumer, serving people quicker.
Agreed. I think you can see where there was there's been an evolution from where you had traditional PoS to MPOS, and I think queue busting is a perfect example of that. And you still see payments out there now. Like yesterday, I was on the train. Taking payments on a train or a plane. They still have a tablet with a pin entry device strapped to the back of the tablet. And I'm like, we don't need that anymore. We can do away with the device to the back of the tablet. So it's almost like we always knew that was never really a nice experience to consumers, and this just kind of changes that to a slick experience for consumers.
David, you talked a little bit about when you guys started working together with Mastercard on the tap on phone integration. I'd like to know, I'm not typically in the sales cycle, so what was it that brought these two parties together? Was it a need? Was it an existing relationship? Why did you choose tap on phone, as something to pilot, and then also decide to pilot with Mastercard?
I guess the first bit is, and it alludes a bit to the point I made earlier, right? So whenever we're introducing new solutions to our customers, well, the first thing we want to try and do is reduce that barrier to entry, right? The more seamless or frictionless we can deliver that into the hand of our customers, the more likely it is for them to adopt it. So the requirement for tap on phone, across Middle East and Africa, again, we're serving more customers in more remote areas. So allowing them quicker time to trade means we want to distribute software-based solutions. So the need is there, clear. We're trying to build bigger, digitally inclusive economies. It can't be dependent on hardware and logistical barriers. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing, in terms of us working with Mastercard and Mastercard Payment Gateway in specific, is we leveraged a lot of what we have been doing for over a decade together. So if we think about the online channel and the e-commerce, together we've been serving merchants in that channel for over a decade. And so we took a lot of what we had existing as process, as asset, and we leveraged that to deliver. the solution into customers. So customers were suddenly, okay, I'm getting the solution, but there's not much change I need to make, and it's not breaking my back-end processes. Reconciliations are working exactly the same. And so it was an obvious winning combination, right? Rather than try and deliver something completely different, completely new, lowering that barrier for adoption. So that really was the reason, to be honest.
With such a diverse area, Middle East, Africa, we talk about financial inclusion as well. And this is for everyone. I'd love to know, what has been the most unique instance of tap on phone that you've seen, either with your customers, out and about? What has been a unique application of it?
So I'll talk about some of the ones that really surprised me. So I take food and beverage industry as an example. So we know there's quite within the sector, there's lots of capability that's quite specific to people doing restaurants and serving up specific hospitality solutions. And if you think of walking into a traditional restaurant or even in hospitality industry, they've got very specific systems that serve those industries, right? The cash registers, the point of sale software is very specific, and normally it's quite difficult to integrate payments into that world. But suddenly it dawned on us that same solution could embed tap on phone within it without having to wire extensive additional hardware to it, bringing additional payment devices. Suddenly you could enrich this entire solution with the tap to pay capability. No additional hardware, no additional software. And that was quite one of the unique and surprising ones. And it won't be that unique for very long, because it's going to be hugely adopted.
I've seen one interesting use case, David, in Africa, right? So a lot of transport there uses cash, right? So we have these little mini buses that go up and down, and consumers pay cash, and it's such a challenge and making sure you have the right change. So we've seen some of these guys adopt tap and phone as a payment method. Okay. We were initially a little skeptical, saying, hey, will this really work? Will consumers adopt this and move? But the experience and the speed of payment really made a huge difference, right? So today, that specific use case, we've seen a huge adoption. In fact, now they're looking to actually expand that beyond just the little transports they had into more taxis and other forms of transit as well. So it's interesting to see some worlds converge, which we thought would necessarily be separate. We would never say retail and transit can potentially coexist, but I think tap on phone as a solution is transcending some of these barriers, actually.
Yeah, I think I've seen a few examples along the same lines as David has mentioned and Deepak. I mean, transit is definitely an area that is cropping up. I dare I say it, fare collection has been, or fine collection has been a use case.
Oh, Craig, I hope you don't have a first-hand
Not for me.
experience with that one.
But I have seen it where a transit operator, obviously has somewhere that an operator that goes on a train and then obviously checks tickets, and sometimes where someone hasn't paid, they have deployed tap on phone. And I think that's back down to some of the similar cases that David said. Is ordinarily you would have an operator that has a device in their hand to check someone's ticket, and they would have then had to have another device on a belt or somewhere to then take card payment, and probably amongst other devices they need. And the same, probably in the same sense around hospitality as well. They have to have all these devices around them. So tap on phone, whilst it's being used also for micro merchants to reduce the cost of a device, but also it's also to reduce the number of devices that you need as well. So transit is one area. Hospitality absolutely is another area, I think, that we've seen. And I think also, Deepak, now you can talk to about this in terms of other customers we've seen, is actual delivery firms as well. So where cash was used So yeah, quite a few examples I've seen.
I think, Craig, you just told me how to make my next fine payment when I'm caught speeding on the road.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Well, most of those implementations sounded very positive. Craig, we'll have to talk about your fine payment in in a different series.
My fine
Uh,
dodging, yeah.
So, there are so many positive aspects to integrating Tap on Phone. What have some of the challenges been, both, on the product side, and then also, David, on really connecting with the merchants on why they want to use this capability? What are some of the challenges that you guys have been encountering and really helping, continue to grow this payment solution?
I think there's a few, and some of them that's top of mind for me is consumer behavior, and trust is definitely something that collectively we need to work on. There's definitely a part of the market as people become more aware of security. It's instilling that trust that it's fine to tap your phone or use your contactless solution on another mobile phone, and that's where I believe organizations need to work together really to to drive that trust into the consumers, letting them know how secure and it is, and the robust security that sits behind that. That's on the consumer side, and then equally, depending on the use case on the merchant side, it is also making sure that there is the adequate training and the adequate information provided, because your user accepting payments is going to be quite different. Somebody, a small business entrepreneur with a dentist, may be more tech savvy and applying and taking payment using the solution, where not every delivery driver may necessarily be totally aware of how to go through the process. So education, both in the merchant side and the consumer side, both from a usability perspective and from a trust perspective, is something that is quite important. Something that's becoming less of a problem, of course, and the longer the solution is in market, is ensuring that, from a smartphone perspective, we've got that requisite level of operating system. But the longer the solution is in market, we've seen that becoming less of a challenge already, because of the standards and the versioning support. So that's almost becoming a non-problem, if you want to call that already. So those are kind of top of mind for me.
I was just going to say, from our side, I think from and obviously chip in Deepak around this, but I think from a product side, from an MPGS perspective, when we first started out this journey, we didn't know really what we were going to land on something here. We didn't realize that it was going to be so successful. And so when we first embarked on it, we started out with some customers. I think the implementation times were quite long, I think, and we were still learning from that. We were working with something completely new that took ordinarily longer than it should have done. And I think one of the things we doubled down on over the last couple of years has been really to hone in on the time it takes to roll out this type of deployment to the likes of David and Network International. And the other thing I think we kind of landed on was also the certification time. Now, it can take a long time to certify these solutions. And what we've done is we've really worked with our internal teams in Mastercard and others to really drive down the time it takes to roll out a solution and certify the solution as well. So those are the areas that we've certainly seen challenges to start with and then worked on over the years.
Another thing that Craig has been super helpful on is essentially ensuring that we have the right breadth of partners to offer to David or people like him, right, to our consumers. So we've actually worked with a number of tap on phone solution providers to pre-integrate their solutions into the gateway, so that the experience and the implementations are so much faster, cheaper, and better, right? So that's something we actually spent a whole lot of effort on. A lot of these tap on phone providers are new fintechs entering into the market, so payments itself is new to them. So we've handheld them through that process, educating them through how to implement it, as well as integrate it into the gateway. And I hope that sort of plays out
Yeah.
nicely in the years to come.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, to bring together and complement what you both have said, Craig and Deepak, is that while it was quite long in terms of implementation, the preparatory work that we've done has meant that the time to roll it out to the merchant community is really short right now, right? Because we've gone through the rigorous implementation, we've gone through the rigorous testing, we've made sure it's robust. And so getting it into the hands of customers now is really easy, right? Customers are surprised when you say, sure, I'll get it to you in a couple of days. You know, even giving it to other organizations saying, you're telling me it's that easy? So it's paid off, that benefit has come together.
Yeah, compared to what it would have been for a traditional PoS, I imagine
Exactly.
it's a huge difference. Yeah.
It is.
It definitely has lowered the barrier of entry for acceptance. I mean, we look at, like you said, the traditional point of sale, we look at the cost. David had mentioned a very good challenge that, Craig, I'd love for you to expand on as well. And he talked about security. You know, when we think about whether it's our mobile phone devices, where it's the company's mobile phone devices, how do we educate and how do we inform the customers that this is a secure transaction? You know, what is it on the back end that we can say, you know, yes, these are all the levels of security that's going into it, you know, and you know, something negative isn't going to happen to either the consumer or the merchant.
I think, I mean, this is down to, actually to start with, we would normally work with our acquiring partners, such as David, to really help with, you know, explain the technology that goes into this and the processes that go into certifying the solutions. They're certified to the same level as any other normal card present solution that you see deployed or in a retail POS. So it's working with organizations like David to sort of really help address any of those questions coming up from the merchant perspective that who then can then filter that down to consumers. I think it's little things like even down to like sonic branding, things like that within the applications that you see. It resonates with consumers, you know, when you hear the beep or you hear a noise around the scheme that you're using. So there's little things like that that I think chime with customers to think actually this is a secure mode of, you know, method of payment.
So, gentlemen, I'd love to know, you know, where do you think Cloud POS is going? Where do you think Tap on Phone is going? Where to next? You know, you thought it was something that may have worked out in, what was it, 2019, when we really talked about developing this solution. All right, we're moving into 2023. What is going to be the next evolution of Tap on Phone?
So I think, yeah, when we started 2019, we actually rolled out the implementation without PIN. So it was very much specific use cases below a country's contactless limit. And we've just now, with David and the team, we've just embarked on rolling out Tap with PIN. So it now opens up the use cases that we wouldn't have ordinarily be able to support before. I think the area that we're seeing this particular technology moving into is actually, dare I say it, mainstream card present. It's going to, in my opinion, it's going to start to eat into those use cases where you just said, I need the traditional PIN entry device, to Dave's point about hospitality. I think possibly quick serve restaurants, so kiosks and things like that, where do you actually need, if you think about how those kiosks are put together, do you actually need a PIN entry device strapped to the side of a kiosk? Could you actually just implement an area where you say, you know, touch here to pay, especially now with the introduction of PIN and Tap with PIN? So I think, to answer your question, I think it's going to start eating into, as much as it's really useful for micro merchants, it's going to start going across the board and open up to every size of merchant moving forward.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, Craig. I think it's twofold. It is a broader adoption and penetration in that mainstream, definitely. Why? Because it opens up more use cases for mainstream. It allows them, you know, to deliver better experience to their customers. If you think of it, you know, all organizations are focused around unified commerce and a unified experience to their customers, and this definitely in mainstream allows you to do that. It allows you to emulate the same experience, whether you're online, whether you're face to face. So a huge enabler for the theme around unified commerce. But then also, the role it plays in cash displacement. And then I'll use an example of seasonal business. We all know when it comes around to festival season, all small operators are right. I need to take payment at the festival. What's the solution, right? And distributing physical hardware for seasonal business is always going to be a challenge, right? The investment it doesn't qualify it, and many times you see at these seasonal businesses, they fall back onto cash as an option, whereas a solution like this means it's going to solve usually for that, right? I've got my mobile, I'll use the solution when festival season comes around. So mainstream cash displacement, growing in the broader digital economy, it's definitely where I see it in the years to come.
Yeah, I think spot on, David. So Tap on Phone as a solution really plays across a whole lot of segments, right? We could talk about gig workers who want to take payments in, right? They now have a cheap and inexpensive form to collect payments. Equally, enterprise merchants would now find it much easier to integrate their payment acceptance device into their ERP platforms, right? So you can start building out whole new propositions, pay at table, or really start playing out to a lot of value streams out there, right? So it's very interesting. It's still early days in my view for Tap on Phone. I think as the months progress, we're going to see the industry itself innovate and find a whole lot of use cases that will probably come back and surprise us in a month's time even.
I mean, so both of you, yes. I mean, in a month's time, we have a very peak shopping holiday season. Interestingly enough, I was in the States that we have these things called craft fairs. I don't know what they're called abroad, but even walking through there, I felt horrible, but I didn't have cash on me, and so I just kind of walked past those stalls. Whether if they had had a tap on phone solution, I would have happily bought something. In fact, there were a couple of cute things I missed out on and had to go and look on their website later. So let's think about that holiday season, that holiday shopping season we have coming up. I'm not going to ask you guys if you've gotten all of your gifts done. I'm sure the answer is probably no. But what would you like to see merchants doing more of? How would you encourage them to be able to accept all those payments as consumers walk by? What should they do to maximize their holiday revenue?
I think the first thing is you hit the nail on the head, right? Well, with holiday season comes a lot of urgency, a lot to be done, and consumers want to transact fast. They're not waiting for a merchant to go and collect the physical payment terminal from their colleagues so that they can take payment from you. Consumers want speed, right? I know. I usually do my shopping, I'm going to admit, on the last minute. And when I'm running around getting those last bits of gifts, I literally do it in 1 to 2 hours. So speed of transacting really needs to be fast, right? Both for businesses and consumers. Merchants don't want to miss out on business, right? So really being able to serve the consumers immediately right there with a tap and go is really important. That's what I want to see from a consumer. Admittedly, I'm not into hanging around in full stores or malls. So I want to be in there and out. So really seamless, quick experience. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to deliver that from a merchant perspective and give that customer satisfaction. So that's certainly my view.
I agree. I think I'm along the same lines as you, David. I think, being in the industry for so long, I'm quite sad when it comes to the payment experience, and much to my wife's disgust when we're out. So if we're out and if we're buying things from markets and things like that, the one thing that really gets on my nerves is, and And this is really the evolution of, where MPOS has come from. Where card is accepted, you tend to find is that they're two separate units. You've got a mobile phone and you've got a pinch device, and they have to pair. And 9 times out of 10, those devices don't stay paired. Bluetooth isn't exactly the best. And then you see them going like this, going, work, and they're not pairing, or oh, it's working now, that type of experience is not great for them, and it's not great for the consumer. Back to David's point, you want it to be, if the phone's got signal and data, then it shouldn't be so painful as it has been. It should just be there straight away, and I think that's the opportunity you get from deploying something like Tap on Phone, and just not having that other device that's is a bit clunky and not great.
Deepak, did you want to add anything to share, or share anything as well?
No, I was just thinking through. I think David and Craig pretty much got everything. The only thing I would probably add is, if I'm the merchant, I basically want to capture every single transaction, right? Especially if I'm the one at a fair or putting up a stall, every single transaction is important for me. I want to make sure I accept payments quick and fast, right? And Tap on Phone really fits the bill there. It's very quick, very fast, doesn't take up space on my stall, right? It's nice and clean as a solution. So I would definitely go find an acquirer who's able to offer this solution for me and get it. Simple.
Yeah, and just finally, Deepak, you mentioned the craft markets and the Christmas markets. Even as we come out of the pandemic, we've all been left with this hangover that we've got quite an icky feeling when we're handling cash, right? We just don't want to walk around with a wad of cash. Not only do I not want to walk around with a wad of cash, you're not really keen on taking change in cash as well when it's been through so many hands, right? So it gives you that feeling. So I think businesses can see themselves losing business to consumers if they don't adopt a digital payment acceptance. And this is the perfect opportunity for them to make sure they don't lose out on that business.
Wonderful. Well, we have the holiday wish list for the businesses that, say, well, I mean, it's fantastic. You can get rid of your POS. You can put more items in that stall then, and you can be fast and quick and not have issues with Craig's example of devices not pairing. Well, gentlemen, I am so thankful that I got the opportunity to talk to all three of you today. Learning about the implementation was incredibly helpful. Seeing how many diverse merchants are really able to utilize this new technology. And Craig and Deepak, you also shared with me a lot of the historical aspects of Tap on Phone that I was not aware of. So yes, thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to talking soon.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.